Kia ora koutou, Markie here. Day 22. Did anyone notice my deliberate mistake? I wish it was deliberate. So I put 20 and 21 in the wrong order. Yeah, and that was kind of inevitable, really, because I have numeric dyslexia, as I mentioned before. I talk about this kind of thing a lot because I think a lot of people have these things, and it's not talked about and not recognised. So I deliberately mention these things to kind of highlight them, really, because RJ is not the only condition that people suffer from that's misunderstood. There's lots of them, really. That's one of my passions, is working with making help available to people who are otherwise either stigmatized. You know, they're people that are kind of considered bad rather than ill, and conditions that people often aren't aware of, making people aware of those. So that's kind of why I do what I do, and in a way the demystification bit, the other part of my channel, kind of fits in with that as well. So basically kind of making information clearer to people. And the other thing I often talk about, the shaky camera, and again that's to do with something similar. That's to do with ADHD. That I make videos on the hoof when the mood takes me. If I kind of set up, and do everything perfectly and put the camera the right way around on a stand, then I'd never get around to doing videos, or I wouldn't do that, I'd never get around to them, but I'd be put off from doing them. So again, I make no apologies for frequently mentioning these things. It's a bit like RJ. I'll continue to, bang the drum for RJ, and I'll continue to bang the drum for some of these other conditions as well. So, today, day 22. So, credit where credit is due. This is all based on the work, or this episode is all based on the work of Zachary Stockhill, who says that one of the things that's very common to RJ, I think he would possibly say universal, is that RJ sufferers put their partners on a pedestal. Okay, what does he mean by that? And I'm kind of conscious that lots of people don't speak English as a first language, so some of these kind of phrases and idioms are not always that clear. So let's try and explain that a little bit. So basically, we idealise our partners on some level. We see our partners as better than us, and we kind of look up to them. Okay, which it's good to admire your partner. It's good to respect your partner. It's good to see their qualities and feel proud of them and all those kinds of things. It's not good to put your partner in a kind of a one-up position, because in a way you're going to be looking for ways to knock them down as well, because it's difficult to live in that one-down position. And also, how do you reconcile the fact that you see them as better than you, and yet they've done X, Y, and Z as part of their romantic and sexual history, which of course is all nonsense, but that's the way that RJers think. Okay, so one of the things he says is you have to take your partner off the pedestal. Otherwise, they're going to kind of fall off it. The pedestal is going to shatter and shards of what pedestals made from. I keep thinking of pedestals on sinks and basins and things like that. So porcelain, shards of sharp broken porcelain are going to lodge in your eye and in your skin. So yeah, how do you dismantle that pedestal? So I haven't got really any great kind of top tips here for how you do that. I think for me it's more about thinking about this. It's just about, do you put your partner on a pedestal? And in what ways? I think it might be good, a recommendation would be to get a pen and paper. Now, I'm very bad at doing exercises. So, if I read a book and there's exercises in there, that really annoys me. I kind of tend to skip the exercises and get back onto the text. And if somebody tells me to do something, then I kind of, I really don't want to do it. That's partly because another condition that I have is pathological demand avoidance. Banging the drum for that one as well. So you might be like me. I don't know, if I suggest an exercise, it's interesting. Does that make you think, yes, I'll go and do that? Or do you think, no, fuck that, I'm not going to do that exercise? So it's up to you. I'm not telling you to do anything. But an exercise that I think would be helpful is to actually get pen and paper and write down, exploring writing the way that you may or may not put your partner on a pedestal. And it makes it sound a bit laborious because you think, well, why can't I just do that in my head? Well, heads, as we know, go round and round in circles. Thoughts kind of don't tend to. Thoughts are a bit like butterflies that never land. So when you write things down, things kind of land and things kind of crystallize and things become clearer. There is something about the process of writing things down that gives you greater clarity than thinking about things will ever do. So reflection can be good, but if you've got a ruminating mind, we can over-reflect, we can overthink, and the butterflies never land. And therefore we don't really ever retain any insights that we might get. The insights might kind of flutter by and we'll look at them and think how pretty they are, and then the next day they'll be gone and we'll have forgotten they ever existed. So think about ways in which you put your partner on a pedestal. Just reflect on that, really. The more you're able to get clarity around this, the more you're going to be able to gently lower them down from the pedestal that you put them on, so that they don't kind of fall horribly, or like I say, or the other metaphor, the pedestal shattering and exploding with shards of porcelain kind of causing shrapnel damage. So let me know what you think about that partners on a pedestal thing. You know, I can certainly relate to that from my RJ days. It's an interesting one, and it's kind of interesting. So was it? I think it was Melanie Klein's. This goes back to old school psychoanalytical psychology. That there is something about the development of our minds, our egos, the way we think, our inner selves, where we find it hard to reconcile to the fact that people are both good and bad. Not necessarily, I mean, that's an absolutist way of looking at it, or that we see people as good and bad, or that people bring good things to us and people bring bad things to us. So I think this is, this kind of makes sense to me in terms of we are completely reliant on parents or caregivers when we are infants, when we're babies and infants. So inherently they are good because they are the ones that keep us alive, but they can also be bad, either in a real sense, an abusive, neglectful parents, which is far more common than people realise, or they just don't always do what we want, so we don't get fed quite when we want it, or they behave in an irritable or withdrawn way when we want to play, or they behave in an uncaring way when we're looking for solace. So we quickly, or we don't, well, some of us quickly and some of us slowly realise that the parental figure and people around us hold both both positives and negatives, and a well-adapted, well-developed mind quickly learns that and kind of comes to terms with that and recognises that that's how the world is. But some of us don't, and things like borderline personality disorder or emotionally unstable personality disorder, which is also called, people tend to hold one or the other and swing from one to the other, which is kind of interesting. So I'm going a bit beyond the topic now, but I think this is kind of putting what Zachary has kind of come up with, which I think is a really good observation, in more of a kind of psychotherapeutic, theoretical kind of context, really. That so it's about, it kind of fits within thoughts and theories about how we see the good and the bad in people. Putting people on a pedestal is a little bit like the borderline personality thing of seeing people as all good. And it's difficult to sustain. If you put somebody on a pedestal, sooner or later you're going to want to knock them off. That's why it's recommended that you gently take them down and gently dismantle the pedestal and dispose of it in a safe way with your eye goggles on and your builder's gloves. So yeah, reflection really. But what I would say is with this kind of reflection, which is important, if you can, if you're not kind of pathologically avoidant of being told what to do like I am, write it down. Put some of those reflections in writing. Another technique which is quite useful is something called free writing. So free writing is where you don't use any punctuation, you don't worry about spelling, and you just write down what comes into your head in a very spontaneous and free-flowing way. So you could ask yourself, you could just sort of say, right, okay, my partner on a pedestal, and just do free writing. And that is very interesting. That's a bit like filming the butterflies as they flutter by. There's another way of looking at that. So yeah, hope this is helpful. Really be interested in how you're getting on. Some of you give me feedback, which I really appreciate. Some of you not give me feedback, which is fine, which is okay. Like I say, you don't have to do anything. It is helpful to have feedback. When I say feedback, I don't necessarily mean like, oh, well, you shake the camera too much, or I don't like the way you say I'm an R too much. What I mean is kind of feedback on the ideas, what you think of the ideas, whether they relate to you, whether you've tried things, whether you've got other suggestions. The other thing I just mentioned in passing, I'm always interested in RJ songs. So I've got a kind of a collection of those. So I put a link to one in a I think it was number 20. It was actually what's her name? Dolly Parton song. There are a cluster of songs that seem to have been written by somebody that really knows about RJ. So if you know of any, please let me know. Okay. So lastly, some people who have been in touch, because you can contact me via the website and email or messenger or other ways, have said, thanks for putting this free content together, and is there any way that we can any way we can reward you, or compensate you for your time, or say thank you. So you don't need to. Okay, it's free. And we want to get this message out to people. We want to use this lockdown time as a way of so you RJers are going to be the only people that come out of lockdown more mentally healthy than when you went into it, which is kind of quite nice. It's nice for the RJs to be on top for once. There is something that if you want to help, there are a couple of things that you can do, and they're listed usually below in the description box, although I haven't updated all the description boxes with the usual blurb. But things like liking the video, subscribing to the video, and the biggie, if you want to be a kind of, if you really want to come on board and help support what we do, if you're able to sign up to our Patreon channel. Our Patreon channel kind of runs in parallel with this one, so everything that's on this channel also goes on the Patreon channel, plus more. So there's some extra stuff on the Patreon channel. So for example, on the Patreon channel, there is a hypnotherapy for RJ session. There is a technique for getting rid of mental movies of RJ, and a few other bits and pieces that are kind of, because it's rewarding people that subscribe. So subscribers are like patrons. Sorry, the people that effectively subscribe to Patreon are what they call patrons. That's what they call them, and that's what it comes from the original word of patron, which is like a patron of the arts. So somebody patronizes an artist, which doesn't mean talks down to them, which means financially supports an artist. So the idea of the whole channel is that people aren't getting paid on YouTube. Some are, but you have to kind of jump through enormous hoops to get to that point, and then you don't get paid very much. So the idea is that people can actually be financially rewarded for artistic work or creativity or sharing information on Patreon. So I think if you really want to help, and you can sign up to Patreon for as little as $1, that's an American dollar, per month. Okay, and I'm quite happy for people to do that. I don't kind of, I don't see that as, I welcome that as much as anything else. And there are benefits to joining Patreon, becoming particularly to RJers, in that I will, where possible, if you want me to do a video on something in particular, if you want to request a video to be made, whether it's RJ or something else, if it's within my frame of knowledge, I will do it. So at the moment there are tiers. You can join at different levels and pay different amounts. But what I've said at the moment, for the time being, that anyone that signs up at any level on Patreon gets all the benefits. So you also get, the other benefit that people get is I will engage in supportive correspondence with people about their RJ. Not kind of unlimited, and I don't promise to kind of, you know, reply immediately. Sometimes it takes a while before I have time to reply to people, but that's one of the other benefits. So you get all those benefits for as little as a dollar American dollar a month. So this isn't really meant to be kind of a sales pitch, but this is just to answer the question really. If you do want to kind of say thanks for this series, for this program, that would be really appreciated. That'd be a great way to do it, and that helps me. Or ultimately will, when it gets bigger, it will help support me to make more videos, because at the moment, you know, I do a day job. I do more than a day job, really. I do kind of all kinds of things. So that's a way of saying thanks, and it's also a way of helping me continue to do what I do. So enough of that. Thank you for watching this, and congratulations on getting through to day 22 of the program, and I will see you tomorrow, Rangimarie.